Hey, what's happening? Welcome to Mates TV. So the wild week at Liverpool Football Club continues with Liverpool signing Wataru Endo from Stuttgart. And listen, let's not sit here and pretend that we had any clue who this guy was prior to that tweet going out. But I do now. You do now. And if you don't, let's chat around him because the big question is this a panic buy from Liverpool? Or is it a piece of shrewd business in a wider kind of plan for the rest of the transfer window? Or is it somewhere in between? Let's discuss it. First and foremost, let's just talk about him as a footballer. I've done a cursory amount of research. I'll go through what I know about him so far. I've got some reaction from various journalists and people who have seen him. And then let's have a general chat around where Liverpool are at with this one, because I have a sneaking suspicion of what's being done here. That's what it is. That's an educated guess of what happens next for Liverpool. So let's start and let's just talk around him. 30 years old, playing in the Bundesliga for Stuttgart. Immediate reaction is obviously a little bit underwhelming, to be perfectly honest, because, you've gone from a week ago, almost to the day, Liverpool were lodging bids for Moises Caicedo. He was the player on everyone's lips. Jamie Carragher had mentioned why aren't they in for him on the overlap at the start of the week. We've then obviously gone through the sort of mire of all that over the weekend. Liverpool have now lost out on Caicedo. They've lost out on Lavia, both going to Chelsea. And that's it. They're the strongest links for that DM position to Liverpool. All of a sudden felt like they'd kind of dried up. We've seen what looks like the depth of Liverpool's bank account, what we know they can go to, which I think is good. That gave me and gives me a degree of encouragement. But if you're then going, well, we were in for Jude Bellingham and then we decided not to go for Bellingham, and we wanted Tchouaméni again, but we couldn't get Tchouaméni again, second someone on the bounce. And then we've really gone all in on Moises Caicedo, but he's chosen someone else. Oh, let's go and get Wataru Endo. Then, that's understandably underwhelming. But look, let's kind of talk around it, because again, as ever, what I like to do is I've got my opinion. You've kind of heard a bit of it in there, but it's always interesting to try and work out what Liverpool are thinking around this one. So let's talk about him. So 30 years old, and one thing I noted on that, he was 30 in February. Fabinho's 29 at the moment. He will be 30 in the new season. I think his birthday's in October or early November. So there's about 6 months in age difference between the two players. One thing we do know about Endo is that he's a Japanese international. He's the Japan captain as well. He's got 50 international caps, which is a really, really solid experience return from that. Mentioned Stuttgart captain as well, which again speaks well to character and level. And what I thought was interesting from looking at Transfermarkt is he's positionally flexible. And by that, what I mean is he's predominantly a defensive midfielder, but he can play in central midfield. And he has done a lot of time at centre half. Now, I will caveat a little bit of this, because that was my initial read. And this is sometimes where it's always worth kind of checking where the backup data comes from. So he's played in his career 239 times as a centre back, which is weird because he's a DM and everyone knows him as a DM now. He's only played 137 games as a DM, so he's played 102 more games at centre-half. However, when you go back through the data, he actually hasn't really played as a centre-half since 17-18, and that was when he was playing for the Urawa Red Diamonds in J-League or J1 League, which is also a new thing I discovered today. I just thought the J-League, that's just the name of the top division, but no, the J-League is the organisation, and it's the J1, J2 and J3 League. As a huge Pro Evo fan, I am astounded that I didn't know that before. But there you go, you learn something new every day. And he's done a little bit of right back and what have you. I don't expect that. Initially I was thinking this makes perfect sense, because I've talked previously about how I think Liverpool need an absolute nailed-on six. And then if you're going to get someone else as like depth, as cover, as squad player, if they can do a couple of positions, that makes perfect sense. If you can do a bit of centre half or a bit of fullback or whatever, then you're making sure you're keeping your squad happy. Everyone's going to get game time across it, thanks to injuries and circumstances and what have you. That was my initial take on this. I'm not 100% convinced that that's true off the back of it, but it certainly won't hurt. He's played a hell of a lot more centre half than Fabinho ever did, and we were clearly comfortable to use him there when needs determined it. So there's something. It's not outside the realms of possibility that he could do a little bit of the inverted fullback thing, maybe. And if Liverpool are going more towards a back three at times, if you want to ask the opposite side to invert, could he do that right-sided centre-half job a little bit? He's not the tallest. He's about 10 centimetres shorter than Fabinho. But it doesn't feel like a nailed-on thing. But it is nice to know that he's got that in his locker. I mean, right now we're playing Alexis McAllister, a DM who's done it for about 20 times, about 20 odd appearances in his whole career when he's played defensive midfielder. And, Curtis Jones has done it once for Liverpool, and there was talk around him. So it stands to reason if we can use those guys as backup defensive midfielders at a push, Endo could do a job in a back three potentially for Liverpool. Or maybe in a back as part of a back four, but to be determined. Saw a tweet saying that he played significantly less minutes in his career than Fabinho. It was around 22,000 to 39,000. Again, diving into it, it depends where your data set's coming from. So what I discovered on FBref was that it was saying that was about true. There was a huge gulf in how much professional football the two lads had played, which was like, wow, okay, well, this is cool. So he's a little bit older, but he's got lots less miles on the clock. Actually, getting back going through his career, FBref doesn't count like J-League 2 and the Emperor's Cup, which is the domestic, the FA Cup in Japan, and a bunch of other competitions as well. So what you've seen in between the comparisons between Fabinho and Endo is that he's played much more minutes at a lower level than Fabinho did. So he's made like 100 appearances in the second tier of Japanese footy. The lowest tier that Fabinho's played in is the Saudi Pro League. Hey, the La Liga 2 is the lowest level that Fabinho's played in, more or less. He's had like 30 appearances, so I guess that will have been for Real Madrid's B team, or Castilla, if you will. Yes, so there's comparable difference between what they've really, in terms of the mileage on the clock. You could argue that not playing at a higher level is that therefore less intensive. I don't know. I wouldn't like to nail me colours to the mast on that one. What I'd say is what it looks like is, on a very broad sense, we're letting go. We've chosen to sell our experienced DM, one who we were looking to phase out, and bring through a new younger star this season, which obviously looked like Lavia was the plan for that, and obviously Stefan Bajcetic would be in the running for that as well. In losing Fabinho and having his head turned by Saudi and a bid coming in at an acceptable level, this feels to me like the plan right now is, how do we replace Fabinho, not how do we basically build a future number 6 star for Liverpool? Because if you're doing that with a 30-year-old, that's not how you do that, is it? That's stupid. That would be really stupid, which is entirely possible. My gut feeling is it's not. That's not the case on that one. Just to go through some of the bits and pieces that has been said around him, just for anyone wondering. Bent Boshak, really good journalist for Liverpool.com. It's important to mention that as well as being captain of Stuttgart, Endo has also recently been named as captain of Japan. This would make him the second international captain Liverpool have signed this summer, after Dominic Szoboszlai, Liverpool bringing in leaders, which I think is a really interesting take. I made mention this elsewhere, but there was a time when Liverpool brought in loads of captains from lower sides, but these guys who, it's not the same. He's a captain in Stuttgart, it's not the same as captain in Liverpool, but he's not captain in Liverpool. It's captain in Japan, a huge nation, massive expectations on that football team. In terms of like how important the Japanese national team is to the Japanese. Hey, listen, I'm not Japanese, so I can't truly speak to it, but it's a football crazy nation. So that is a really high level for what it is, of course. But just having leadership qualities, being the guy who everyone turns to, being a leader on the pitch is an important thing to have. And the more leaders Liverpool have, the better. I think we were lacking a little bit of that, particularly in midfield in the Chelsea game. That was one of the games where Jordan Henderson's experience might have proved invaluable to us, but can this guy be a sufficient replacement for that? Honestly, who knows? But I'd rather have players. If you're going to buy experienced players, I say buy experienced players who've got lots of those sort of intangible extra benefits. It's not just all in the stats. It is often in character, and again, experience, the places you've gone, the things you've seen, the people you've been responsible for along the way. So I like that as a notion, to be perfectly honest. Chris Williams, Bundesliga journalist, good friend as well, really good guy. He replied to one of the original tweets about this deal, saying, excellent player for Stuttgart, leaves it all on the pitch and very disciplined. Stuttgart kicked back an approach from Freiburg in June. Stuttgart were planning on a contract extension, only an absurdly high fee could make them think. Be interesting to see the fee discussed. We now know that looks around 15 million-ish quid plus add-ons, which seems a reasonable amount of dough. And Andy Brassel, European football expert, friend of the channel, good guy again, worked with him many times in the past, so spoke to Mario Gomez in a round table at the weekend. Presumably he's not a Mason, but maybe he is. He couldn't have spoken about his former teammate in more glowing terms. Unheralded, but a very smart footballer, a leader with real character and resolve. And Dan O'Hagan as well, who's a commentator for Bundesliga and beyond, he says on his Twitter, says, one of the Bundesliga's most unsung stars, an absolute running monster, an engine like few others, rarely wastes a pass, a natural leader and a scorer of important goals, excelled in a very moderate Stuttgart team. He'll be a terrific asset to Liverpool. And I think one of my overall things on this is, again, there's trying to assess a mood around the situation of a fan base, and Twitter, I've said it plenty of times, and people all know the interaction I've had down there lately. It's not a great barometer for that stuff, because it is a narcissistic echo chamber where people seem to just pour out every bile-coated thought that they have in their brains a lot of the time, and certainly that's the stuff that gets the most traction and the most retweets and what have you. There's not really loads of online communities for moderate thinkers. You know, we see this a lot. There's a great podcast called the Weekly Planet podcast, which is comic books, movies, TV shows, geeky stuff, and they just rate movies as best movie ever, worst movie ever, and it's very tongue-in-cheek, because you sometimes you can be, and their line is often, sometimes it's just a movie, sometimes they're just a footballer. And honestly, sometimes you just need footballers. Not everyone has to go be on the path to being the best football player in the world, and not everyone has to be utter dirt, absolute dog shit. Sometimes you've just got a bunch of footballers who just do the structural work for you. They carry the piano, they do all these bits and pieces, and it feels like this is that kind of move. This definitely feels like a squad move for me. But as I say, if you're going to buy a squad player, my overall fears around squad players is an overall lessening of quality of your squad. What you want to do is buy better than your first 11, and then it kicks your existing down the pecking order. What this feels like to me is they didn't expect to lose Fabinho and Henderson, so what they're doing here is they're buying someone who sort of replicates a bit of that. Is an experienced DM, he's got years and years of doing it at a decent level, at a high international level, and he's got captaincy material. So if you have to drop him, if he needs to play Europa League games or cup games, and he's got young players around him, you know, I can't speak to the language barrier or whatever, but again, someone who knows how to conduct themselves professionally on and off the pitch, they're the things that make real, you know, give players longevity and add more value than just what their stats are, what are their running stats, or their pressing stats, or their, you know, pass completion stats. And these are all sound in that regard. Actually, I'm quite pleased. Again, speaks to him just being a footballer. His actual sort of attacking output miles better than what Fabinho was doing last season. He's in the 70th or above percentile for non-penalty goals, non-penalty XG, shots, assists, expected assists, and that kind of stuff. His passes attempted and pass completion rate's not great, but we saw that with Romeo Lavia was a bit like that as well, and a few of the DMs we've seen are a bit like that. His progressive passing rate is 59%, and this is Big Five leagues as well comparison, which a few of the players we've looked at on here in recent weeks, like Florentino, Luis, and Edson Alvarez, were in the next group of leagues, not in the top five leagues, Bundesliga's top five leagues, so that's comparable to the top stars in world footy when you do that. Successful take-ons is good, and you can see that in his highlight reels. He's comfortable on the ball, he's comfortable dribbling forward with it if it changes the landscape sound. His clearances, 94th percentile, and aerials were 95th percentile. Is brilliant. Blocks good, tackles and interceptions mid to lower, which is just a thing, and a lot of that can be stylistically and how you're used in a football team. But he looks decent, and when you stack him up against Fabinho, and this is the thing, you're not stacking him up against prime Fabinho here. You know, this is not, I don't think, again, Fabinho's long-term replacement. Fabinho had a greater pass completion, and was better at interceptions, But in all, and pass attempted, pass completion and interceptions is where Fabinho had more going on than Endo. But in almost every other, Endo beat him out. And again, most of them are the offensive stuff, but again, things like successful take-ons, progressive carries, etc., etc. It speaks to what Liverpool are looking for a bit more. They don't just want destroyers; they want guys who can play a little bit as well. And if you just look at this, it just feels like I can't help but feel on this that Liverpool desperately need a defensive midfielder. Make no bones about it. They need to get their act together in the transfer market. Because we're about to go into the second game of the season, and having a second game of the season without a professional DM at your club, we've talked about it before, it's negligence, it's stupidity. So they need to get someone in. If Liverpool was signing him as the final signing of the window, just go, okay, we've got a chance to we just need maybe just one more just to kind of round out what we're doing, I'd be made up with this as a signing, because he's obviously not a long-term thing. He clearly wants to play for Liverpool. It's seen as like his dream move, great opportunity for him at that stage of his career. He's a hard worker, he's got leadership qualities, so he's not like a guy, he's not a mercenary coming for one last big paycheck. His character speaks volumes in that regard. It feels like smart business. However, if you're telling me that Liverpool's business ends with this, then this is stupid, and this is a panic buy, and this is Liverpool going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we need a DM, who can we get? You, let's just settle on you. What I feel like they're doing at this right now, because there was a real flurry of like links again that kind of reared their heads, and Amrabat was linked. And I speculated a while back that if you were going to get Amrabat, it was very much your short-term solution, your Fabinho replacement, but you're still in the market for your short to medium to potentially, long-term number 6 for Liverpool, the one that you're going to be building the next Liverpool 2.0 around. Amrabat feels, even though he's like prime age, I think because of his ceiling of quality, which seems to be the general, reading between the lines, reading again decent commentators on this, he's not top quality. He's a here and now plug and play footballer, but he's got a ceiling, and he's probably already at it. And I wonder whether Liverpool have just gone around and looked for him. They've clearly spoken to Fiorentina, lots of chat around this, and they've gone, well, the rumours are the West Ham had a bid accepted at 35 earlier in the summer. He turned them down. So the shape of Amrabat is about 30 to 35 million pounds. Manchester United really want him. And if you get into that, you might be triggering some sort of bidding war for a player that you really only want as a squad rotational option. And I think they've looked around it, looked at the data, looked at the numbers, looked at who's available, and gone to Endo and gone, okay, well, we need someone for, maybe like a 3-year contract. He might be useful over that period of time. But what we need is a short-term stopgap solution while our other one settles in. Or if we get another one at a decent level, to keep it rotating. We don't want if we need a defensive midfielder, because we've got none, we don't just need one. We need to have options there, because if that one goes down, you're fucked. And then you've wasted all of your time and energy on this. So Liverpool need 2. Chelsea have just gone and done 2. They've just gone and spent 170 odd million pounds to do 2. I don't think Liverpool will go to that. And I'm rambling, but my overall take on this is, my opinion on this is hinged almost exclusively on what they do next. Liverpool need a centre-half, I think, and they definitely need a more one to grow in midfield. Sheikh Doucouré is the strongest link at the moment, and I think that will be pretty decent. I think if you get Doucouré and Endo, that seems okay to me. Does having an experienced DM mean you can go and take a bit more of a punt stylistically on your next one? Could you go back to Thuram or Gravenberch and then spend half a season to a year acclimatising them and changing them to be more of a DM? Maybe that's make them a project. Maybe that's possible. But yeah, the window's not shut. If this was it done, I think this would be a bit very, very underwhelming. But I like it as a buy. I think it's got really clever elements to it. Ultimately, I just want to see them play, and whether they're good enough to play on the pitch, that will be determined. But yeah, smart, not like a let's parade him on the steps of Anfield kind of move, but could be a really tidy piece of business if we're having a full rounded window of transfer action, if that makes sense. That's my take anyway. Right, loads more on this guy. Chris has done a deep dive special. Dan has been speaking to, I actually made him send me a list of all the people that he's got. Journo Insight with Neil Jones, German Bundesliga commentator Konstantin Eckner, Opta analyst Lewis Ambrose, and Japan Times journalist Dan Orlowitz. Either recorded now on Redmen Plus or getting recorded today, tomorrow, and in the coming days. So if you want to know more about this guy, get yourself to Redmen Plus. I'm going to give you a code. I've tried this in the past and messed it up. I've made sure I've got this right this time. Choose a captain level subscription yearly and use the code ENDO, ENDO. And that will get you 50% off an entire year of Redmen Plus videos, podcasts, interviews, documentaries. Fill your boots. It's amazing. It's brilliant. It's miles better producing the shit I do in here, because that's where all the money and the effort and the facilities go. I do all this myself. Go and do that. Code ENDO, 50% off a yearly subscription to Redmen Plus. And also, my brand new book, Bobby Firmino, Best in the World, is out. If you haven't checked that out already, I'm going to end you on the advert for that. But listen, give me your thoughts on Endo in the comments. What do you think? Is it a panic buy? Is it part of a bit of astute transfer work? Or is it somewhere in between? Is he just a player? Drop a like. Let me know in the comments below. Up the Nets. Hey, what's happening? Our brand new book, Bobby